or is it this a federal lawsuit?
It's in state court in Lubbock County.
Hi, Blair Sable with Fox 34 and KCBD News. So I wanted to ask you about if any other accusers have come forward to your law firm. I understand while reading the lawsuit that was filed this morning, it appears to be one of the accusers who was mentioned in the original criminal complaint that we got access to. Have you heard any other accusers come forward as of yet?
We know of the other victims, of course, who are named in the criminal complaint, and we are not representing those other families at this time. And we have received some information about some other conduct that is concerning by Dr. White, but we haven't been able to investigate it yet since this is all relatively new. Also, one of the things that we are investigating is the relationship between Dr. White and his business partners and this conduct, because he's got some business partners, for example, that he owns his ranch with, where some of the conduct took place. So we're going to need to take testimony from people who are associated with Dr. White and in business with him, find out what they knew, what their level of participation was, and we'll be adding those people as defendants to the lawsuit as we learn information that implicates their conduct.
Sure. Do you have any messages for people who might have been involved in inappropriate relationships with Dr. White in the past? Do you have a message for them? Do you have anything that you would like to say to them?
Well, as far as Dr. White's victims go, I admire the courage of those people who are willing to step forward and make reports to law enforcement and even pursue civil claims, because this will help put a stop to what he's done. And the way these abusers and manipulators work is the victims end up blaming themselves, and they put a lot of guilt onto the victims. And so it's a hard thing for the victims to do, to come forward. And so we would encourage them to do that, because it's got to be stopped. And the stronger the case, the more likely he'll be done. And that's what needs to happen. As far as people who were associated with Dr. White and might have been participating with him or enabling or supporting this behavior, I'll tell you, we are going to turn over every stone to find out every one of those persons, to identify all those people and see what they've done in this regard, and we will hold them all accountable. We will be joining them to the case, and we will be making them pay.
And just one last question. So you mentioned in your statement that Dr. White was allegedly running a child pornography business, and you mentioned that it was going on for quite some time. Do you have any idea of how long that may have been going on?
We don't know how far back the pornography business goes, but there's evidence that Dr. White has been sexually grooming and abusing minors for a long time. And I mean, as far back as 10 years ago. We have indications of conduct that certainly is consistent with that sort of grooming behavior. And there have been incidents that are indicative of children being sexually abused. In hindsight.
Of course. Thank you.
Hi, Laura Lawhead with KMAC News. Do you anticipate any more arrests to be made with, many business partners potentially being involved, with many people knowing? Do you anticipate any more people to be facing criminal charges?
I'll be surprised if there are not more arrests. We've had indications, evidence that Dr. White has transmitted kiddie porn to third persons. Anyone who received that and didn't report it, who should have known that it was underage children, they're subject to prosecution, and I expect that's going to happen.
Do you know when that might happen?
The criminal case is completely out of our hands on the civil side. That's subject to, I know both the local police and federal authorities with both the FBI and Homeland Security are working on those issues. They certainly have the tools to chase those things down. And I don't know what their timetable is, but I would not be surprised to see it happen soon.
And as of now, several of the court documents have named an adult male to whom White was sending these images to you, and some suggestion that this may have been a prominent individual in the Lubbock community. Do you have any idea of who this individual or individuals in this case could be, who these prominent figures could be?
We do have some idea, and it does potentially involve some very prominent people. And I will say that because it is such a strong accusation and allegation that, you know, we're not prepared to name those people at this time. I'd like to go through the discovery process. In the civil case, that means taking depositions, obtaining documents, and then we'll see what kind of evidence the law enforcement authorities have. Once Dr. White is indicted and then the law enforcement authorities, the prosecutors will have to hand over their evidence to him. And that's called Brady material, where a defendant's allowed to see what the law enforcement has in a criminal case, criminal discovery, they call it. And he'll get that material, and then we will get it from him. We're entitled to get that information from Dr. White. So we'll have all the federal evidence at that point. Until then, we can attempt to take deposition testimony from both Dr. White and his partners. I expect him to plead the fifth. It will be interesting to see who else pleads the fifth as we move along through our process of issuing subpoenas and setting up depositions.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You bet.
This is Gabe again with the AJ. Just a follow-up question. I know you mentioned that the criminal case and the civil case are separate and kind of will go on their own pace. What sort of timetable are you expecting because of this criminal case that, you know, might take precedence? Or, you know, how long do you see this your case going?
Sure, that's a great question. Our civil cases typically take anywhere from a year to a year and a half, depending on how busy the court is, what the backlog is. You know, we lost Judge Reyes recently in Lubbock, and we're having to fill that position. And then with COVID has delayed so many of our trials that there's kind of a backlog. But I'm encouraged that the criminal case shouldn't really slow us down. A lot of times we're slowed down by a pending criminal case because they do take precedence. But fortunately, the federal law enforcement moves very quickly. Federal criminal cases move very quickly. And so I expect the federal criminal case to be done long before our civil case. And our civil case I expect to be done in about 18 months as far as, you know, getting it to trial and either potentially settling it or having a trial. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, you guys, you have my cell phone number probably. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'm around. So if there are no other questions, then we're probably done, right, Sarah?
I think that's everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.